Nintendo stuff. No longer separated by cosmic cabinets, Brandon and Logan is way over there. We're gonna let him have an opportunity to get over here. Oh,
good.
Don't hurt yourself. I'm assuming the audition file's still recording.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and this is Santi.
Hi, I'm here. I exist. I'm material.
Hi, Santi.
He's a real boy.
So I noticed that your shirt says off air, but
we are definitely.
You're very much on air.
Well, air, but you know.
You're on air.
For all intents and purposes. Yeah. Welcome to Nintendo Stuff number 48. We got a lot to talk about this week, including something that I don't think all of us were quite expecting so soon, being the new Nintendo Switch model coming out in late August, early September, which primarily just replaces the current existing model and effectively doubles the battery life.
I'm down with the battery life getting bumped up. I don't think that's going to be enough for me to go out and just replace my Switch.
Not for $300. Not for $300. No,
not for $300. I'll stick with my Switch as is. Overall, just a kind of a quality of life thing. That's probably a good idea.
It's not like a huge thing, you know. I'm pretty satisfied where it's at right now. But you know, for those who are just jumping in, getting a Switch for the first time, I think it's a pretty good change.
I do like the idea of being able to play Breath of the Wild for, what was it, 5.5 or 6.5 hours handheld on the new Switch model.
Yeah,
that's a big increase.
Yeah,
that's
opposed to like what, 2.5?
2.5.
Yeah.
Just a large, big increase. Like the Nintendo Switch Lite is getting the same thing, but to a lesser extent. And I'm pretty sure this is all because of the revision of the Tegra X1 chip from NVIDIA that is going to be in these systems. I think the code name is Mariko.
Okay.
And it just runs more efficiently, resulting in more battery life. And that's about it as far as the new Switch is concerned. It does have new packaging. It doesn't say it's a new Switch or anything like that. I don't even think it advertises the battery life on the box. So if you're a new person to Nintendo Switch, this is a good opportunity for you to get a really nice version of the current model. And it'll be coming out in just a couple months here.
Yeah, Nito Kobito.
It's about all there is to that.
Yeah, not a whole lot, really. I've seen a lot of people make really big issue out of it, but you know, it's just a nice small thing.
Big issue how?
Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, like this is a huge change." You know, we've got I guess it's in a way it is. You know, that's a lot of time to be playing Breath of the Wild in handheld mode, but you know, it's not like there's a whole lot of it's no Switch Pro. Like,
oh right, yeah, it's not like you're getting a better
CPU or anything like that. Yeah. If it came with those kinds of things, I still wouldn't agree with people being upset because Nintendo always revises their hardware. Yeah. You're going to buy it, and maybe next week they announce the next version of it. It's kind of your fault for waiting so long to get on the board or jump on board for the system. But you have to anticipate Nintendo's going to do that because they do it all the time. I guess it hurts people a little bit more because when they announce these things, usually they come out within 2 to 3 months of that initial announcement, so there's not a lot of time to make that decision.
Sure.
Where like with Sony, with the PS4 Pro, I think there was an extensive amount of time before that actually launched after we learned about it. So people would have more time to make that decision whether or not they want to buy the current model or wait for the new one.
Right.
But that said, I do think a Switch Pro is still on the way. That's probably something coming next year. So if that's what you're wanting, just keep waiting out. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Next up on the docket.
Oh, I mean, let's talk about... well, first of all, let's talk about what we did this weekend.
Yes, you may have seen the photos on Twitter of our pretty sweet Splatoon 2 Final Fest setup. We had 3 TVs all lined up together in the same corner of the room, and we were all playing #Team Order, even though we lost. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, we performed admirably.
We won a lot of games.
We were definitely an asset to our team.
At least they were. I consistently ranked the lowest on the
Doesn't matter. As long as we were winning as a group, that's what matters.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, Team Chaos won. That being said, it's been a while since I've really played Splatoon 2, and I forgot how much fun it was.
It's really fun.
That game is just so fantastic. And, you know, now that we're thoroughly upset that Team Order lost, as it should have won, but it didn't.
We didn't just lose. We got swept.
Yeah.
3-0 for Team Chaos via popularity, standard and pro.
Yeah. So now the big question on everybody's mind is like, okay, that is the last Splatfest. We got a bunch of content much longer than we were initially anticipating for Splatoon 2.
Right.
It's had quite the life. It sold 8.7 million copies.
It's an incredible amount for a new IP or newer IP,
right.
which is great considering the first only sold 5 million. Although that is pretty good considering there was only 13 million Wii U sold.
That's a pretty good attach rate.
But there also wasn't a lot of games. So when it came down to it, people buying Splatoon, solid gameplay loop, solid game, tons of content. And now the question is, where's Splatoon 3? Where are they at with that? And they announced that there are currently no
plans, right?
Yeah, no, it's not in development, obviously. They were finishing up Splatoon 2. They don't really have even an idea of what they're going to do with it yet because they were very much focused on delivering a great Splatoon 2 experience.
And this was the exact same thing with Splatoon 1. As soon as Splatoon 1's updates stopped rolling out, they immediately began production on Splatoon 2. So now that Splatoon 2 is, I'm assuming, officially done, if there's not any more stability or balance patches from here on out, that if they are going to make a Splatoon 3 and it will come out on Nintendo Switch, that development will start now.
Yeah, and so I imagine just people throwing around ideas, trying to figure out okay, what else are we gonna do? Because I mean, from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2, it was a lot of okay, let's fill out the game, let's add a few new modes.
It was kind of a modest upgrade, at least at first. Now it really feels like Splatoon 2.
Yeah, we got an extra mode in there at some point.
Two, if you count Salmon Run and Clam Blitz.
Oh yeah, Salmon Run.
Even thematically, Splatoon 1 and 2, they stand out. There's so much different. Especially, I think once Octo expansion hit, everything really changed about that game.
Octo expansion really gave Splatoon 2 its own identity.
Yeah. It's a lot more stylized than the first, I'd say. To an extent, it really leans heavier on the hip hop culture, which I really enjoyed a lot.
Kind of the funk type stuff.
It's genuinely darker. If you play through the story, it's crazy. So I'm excited to see what they're gonna do with that. Going forward with Splatoon 3 when it inevitably does happen.
For those who haven't finished the Octo expansion, there is a big lore drop at the end of the story mode. So if you haven't done that, you really should, because they drop a huge bomb in terms of the story, which is pretty exciting. And just getting to play as an Octoling is awesome.
Didn't they utilize some of that for the final Shifty Station?
Yeah.
Yes. So for those of us who finished the Octo expansion, a very important part of the Octo expansion was the final Shifty Station stage. Yeah. It was in the background, and if you don't know what it is, maybe wait until you beat the game.
I doubt you're really going to catch it when playing a normal match anyway. We
didn't even notice it until several matches in.
And we played 40 plus matches in total, and it was barely noticeable because we were so focused on the actual game,
Yeah.
But it's there, and it's also the only Shifty Station, I think, that takes place in a place that isn't dark, because it was sunset.
Yeah.
Right.
Versus underground and in this weird Mario Sunshine type realm type thing. But yeah, in terms of Splatoon 3, I think if they intend for Splatoon 3 to come out on Nintendo Switch and it's not something that's going to wait till the next platform, I think Splatoon 3 has to do something almost radically different, at least in terms of the single-player content. As far as Splatoon 3 and the multiplayer content is concerned, you just need to deliver more of what we know, maybe some new modes, some cool new maps, new gear, all that stuff. That just keeps the game fresh. But for the single player mode, I think, like with the Octo expansion, that's where they really need to kind of get their heads together, come up with something cool to help the game stand apart from its predecessors. Right. And I've already thought a little bit about this, and there's a couple things that I want them to do. One of them is more customization for your Inkling or Octoling and their dorm room. I want to be able to customize my dorm room with, maybe I go to Splatoon Inkling classes and I get degrees and stuff like that, or, all of my gear, I can display it on the walls, that kind of stuff.
That would be so cool.
And then the other aspect of that is me and Logan are big fans of Mario Tennis on Game Boy Color. I want to attend like a Splatoon school in the story mode, and I want it to play out like an RPG where like you go up against the other kids and you get stronger, you can use your points on your skills, that kind of stuff.
Go ahead.
That's a lot bigger, like all that's just so much bigger thinking than I wanted. I just wanted the ability to like customize your pants.
Splatoon 3 customizable pants.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a big dreamer. If you go back, I don't even know if it was even Nintendo stuff at that point in terms of some of the discussion about Breath of the Wild and what they were doing, but like really ambitious ideas. And this kind of goes along with like all the stuff, like just pie in the sky, like no way they're ever going to do this. But in terms of like, I feel like every game should be Mario Tennis, like in that way of like, dude, give me like this, this avatar. In this case, the Inklings are just fine, Octolings, whatever. But like really have me like invested and involved in a way that's more than just I'm experiencing like a story, Like more RPG elements are great. I mean, they don't have to go like full RPG necessarily.
And there's already like light RPG elements in Splatoon 2's main story mode because you can upgrade the gear you collect.
Right.
But it's just like kind of base level. We need more.
Yeah. I do like the idea of filling out kind of the lore of the world a little bit more. I love the idea of having more of a social aspect of like, dude, what if there was like a room that was your own, like your dorm room or your apartment or something like that.
And let us like connect to Splatnet through the game on like your Inkling phone or computer in your dorm room. It's like cool stuff like that builds the world out and makes you feel like you're really a part of Inkopolis.
Right.
In terms of the lore, for the last two games we've been battling the Octarians, and I think given the context of Octo expansion, I think that's kind of, not the case anymore. The Octolings are part of Inkling society, whether the Inklings actually know that or not for some reason.
I mean, there's
like Marina.
Does
anyone even
spoiler? I was like, wait, what?
Marina, does anyone even know that Marina's an Octoling? Like, I mean, outside of, us, like we know she's an Octoling, but do the people in Splatoon know she's an Octoling?
I think Pearl and maybe one other spoiler character are the only ones who know.
Yeah.
Like they talked about it in like text messages, and beyond that, I don't think anyone else has ever mentioned it.
Yeah, so they could go on that angle for Splatoon 3, but there's another part of the Octo expansion that they hit on it in the terms of who the boss was.
Yeah.
And another aspect of society that got revealed to us. I think they're going to make them the villain going forward. I'm
done with that, yeah.
Yeah. You'll know what that means soon enough.
I really got to get on that.
It's not very... You can beat it in like an hour.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, like
please do.
It's challenging, but like it's still, feasible.
Yeah, after you do all like the little missions and get the pieces to... I don't even remember what you were collecting, but once you collect all those pieces, you then enter like the final stages of the single player, which is like a 7-stage gauntlet that you just play back to back, which feels a little bit more like Splatoon's main story mode, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. I would really like just a single player, like an offline turf war mode.
Like with AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because we haven't had that, and I was really surprised, especially given, the Switch's nature of being handheld.
Yeah, and there is AI in the game. Right? There's like those levels where you're facing off against like Octolings.
Or even the Salmonids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have their own AI.
And I would like to just hop on a bus and, as much as I enjoy Salmon Run, like, I would also just like to play Turf War.
it'd even be cool if you could do like I guess it'd be a little bit similar to Salmon Run, but if you could have like an endless gauntlet of Inklings and Octolings coming at you.
That'd be interesting, I feel like, because, there's a lot more variation in the weapons and, movement's different.
Or just endless Salmon Run would be fun as well. Just see how far you can
there
get.
isn't an endless mode for that,
No,
is there?
It's just, 3 waves. Which, I mean, it's fine for what it is, and I enjoy Salmon Run. Like, I'm so
It's
glad
super
that
fun.
mode is there. The amount of content we got in Splatoon 2 was insane. I'm not sure how much they should, try to top that, in addition to like, okay, are we adding something? Are we changing things? Are we replacing things?
I should also say that we don't need to see all of this stuff at launch.
No.
Like, it could be like Splatoon 1 and 2, where they kind of dish out content over time, as long as there's an ample amount of stuff to play with at the beginning.
It seems like for games that are primarily online like that, it works out pretty well.
Yeah.
Because, like, okay, you get the initial push at launch, okay, play these modes, and then over time, like, okay, people are like, well, I've already played these modes, and then throw in some extra stuff.
I mean, even thinking of the gear sets, if all of the gear sets that ended up in Splatoon 2 had been there at launch, it would have been way too overwhelming.
Yeah, really, really overwhelming. And I think that's what I like about some of these games. Now, there's other Nintendo games that I wish would have gotten more updates, Super Mario Party. But in terms of Splatoon, like, man, they really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Even something like ARMS, like, that got a lot of updates, like, after the fact.
Lots of characters, even several modes. One of them, I always forget the name of the little helmet guy who you fight in single player. They turned it into a multiplayer mode where you could do a free-for-all and he would spawn on the map, and then you could wear him on your head, and it would give you like 6 extra arms when you punch.
Yeah.
Super fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
We need more.
I love the quirky stuff that Nintendo has been pulling with their new IPs. Even like, what was it, Miitopia or whatever?
Yeah.
It came out around the same time as ARMS, I love that kind of, it's new, it's fresh, it's
Silly.
really different, right? Yeah, I love it. Going back to Splatoon, though, I know a lot of people were really quick on the draw to call the second game really bare bones, I guess, on launch.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I was fine with it.
There's more content than the first game.
Yeah. It was an ample amount of content for what it was, and then later, there were updates, constant Splatfest, and then we eventually got Octo expansion. And
Which
honestly, I think I'd be okay with them doing that again for the third, in a sense. Sort of, especially if you want to talk about the lore and like the story. I like the iterative aspect of it. You had the first story mode that the game launched with, and then you've got the Octo expansion, which kind of like play into each other,
Yeah.
I remember like there kind of being that one complaint about like, it's kind of just more of the same in terms of, the single player experience. And that was disappointing, but I think Octo expansion really made up for that. But I hope that for Splatoon 3, because we know it's coming. There's no way they're not making Splatoon 3.
It's a mega hit.
Yeah. When we get it, hopefully we get something really, substantial right out of the gate, and something that, really kind of pushes the boundaries of the kind of design that they're doing, and even maybe play with the structure of it a little bit more instead of just kind of just feel like a 3D Mario kind of thing where
with
stage
guns.
by stage by stage, which I don't necessarily mind all of that, but I'd love something even more like cohesive.
They play into that a little bit in the final stages of Octo expansion, and you can really see like how they could evolve the single player experience. And yeah, I think it's totally doable.
I'm such an incredibly irresponsible Nintendo fan by like, I just feel like really like there's this weight upon me. Like, why haven't I finished Splatoon 3? Especially like those times when I'm like,
good.
I'm not sure what, like I sit down to play something and like I've been playing through Wolfenstein and I get stuck. Like I'm getting near the end of the game and it's getting harder. But like, why don't I just go back and do some other things in these games that I forget even exist, at certain times. Like, was I talking about Splatoon 2 the other day? And it's like, why wasn't I playing this game this entire time? I imagine I'll have a million more experiences like that. Because that's just how my brain works.
Man, if we have to later on, I can just show you the subway map and you can find where you need to go.
No, I think I'll just struggle through it. Maybe when we get out of here later, I'll just bring my Switch along and try not to get car sick.
That'd be easy to do in Splatoon. I think the last thing I'd like to see from Splatoon 2 or Splatoon 3 single player is not making it single player. I want some co-op.
That would be amazing, please. Especially with I mean, you could use voice chat anywhere with literally any app, but I feel like if they wanted to, they could probably push the
I mean, even with the
Switch Online voice app there.
Even with the Switch, I mean, you could just local play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, co-op would be so good. I'm such a huge fan of like really, really intensive co-op experiences. And when I think of like premier co-op experiences, I think of something that you have to play
like
with
Portal
another
2.
person.
I
Like
was
Portal
just
2.
about to say
Literally, like Portal 2 is the standard for co-op experiences for me.
Actually, thinking about that, I would like to see some level design that's more puzzle oriented in a way, you know, and especially for co-op like that. Could
because
really
there's really
work.
not any of that.
Think
out
about
there.
like boss designs that would require
Right.
like 2 points of interest at a given moment
Yeah.
that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
I'd like to see a boss rush mode too. That's just me.
They've already got like the perfect setup for it too, because we have Inklings and Octolings.
Right.
So one person could be the Inkling and the other person be the Octoling, and they could go through the story together. That'd be awesome.
And then at the very end of it, you turn on each other.
Oh, God. There was a beat 'em up in the past that did that, and I played it through it with my brother. I forget what it was called, but it was pretty intense.
It's
so I'd like to see some stuff like that.
Spoiler alert, but that's the ending to A Way Out.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking about like in that sort of not necessarily asymmetric style of gameplay, but you know, it kind of is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the saddest experiences at the end.
Really?
I played through that with Paul. The whole playthrough's on the channel still, but we got to the end, and Paul and I tried every possible way to get out without having to kill each other.
And they force you into it.
They forced us. Yep.
Wow.
It hurt,
Wow, I
man.
want to play that.
It's good. Yeah, so I'm excited for the prospects of Splatoon 3. I don't think we'll see it for 2 or 3 years from now, though.
Yeah.
That seems to be the development cycle. Didn't the first one come out in like 2014 or something?
Yeah, and then after we had 2 years of content, and then 2 years after that, the game launched.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I'm okay with that. If they want to turn it into not necessarily like a Call of Duty type of, you know, yearly shooter, but if it's gonna come out in an interval of like 4 years,
That's fine.
Give me like 50 of them.
I mean, by the time we get to Splatoon 4, we'll already probably be on the next platform.
Yeah. So what are you guys thinking? Like 2021?
I'm gonna probably say 2022. I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean we're gonna see the end of the Inklings until, 2022, because they're in Mario Kart, they're in Smash Brothers. They're probably going to get thrown into a lot more Nintendo stuff.
I imagine we're gonna get like some mobile games or something down the line.
I wouldn't even be surprised if we end up with some kind of Splatoon spin-off that we learn some other aspect of Inkling life.
Give me a life sim.
Yeah.
Give me a life sim.
I would like the idea of like a visual novel. I made jokes about that like the last few days. Like, oh, now that they're done, like just give me like a visual novel, like a life sim. That would be so cool. Like, let me experience the life of the Inklings outside of inking everything.
There is the ongoing manga series that I think is 6 or 7 volumes deep.
Has that been translated?
Yes.
Oh, it has.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes an anime.
Please.
Nintendo needs to really. I mean, they've been talking about like we're getting the Mario movie in 2022, 2021.
So far away.
It's so far away. But man, could you imagine like getting some official like Nintendo anime?
It's been a long time.
And Splatoon would be perfect for it because there's like countless narratives that you could tell.
That's your Saturday morning cartoon right there.
Yeah.
I remember getting up on Saturday mornings to watch Kirby Right Back at You. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah,
I would love.
It's such a blank slate,
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Zelda where you've got like you've got Link and then you've got Zelda. Save Zelda from Ganondorf or whatever. Like you don't have to stick to a certain formula for the characters because you've got literally just a billion OCs that you can create.
I hope Nintendo really realizes like, hey, maybe we should not just do movies, but we should actually do TV shows again and actually do like seasons. Because I'd love to have like a Nintendo show to come back to like for at least even a few years.
Whether it's lighthearted or full drama, like I'm I'd like it.
I don't. There used to be an era with the Legend of Zelda series, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, Captain N and the Game Master, and talk about the quality of those shows. Donkey Kong Country, what's like a French animated series?
Oh God,
CG animated.
It was Pixar, wasn't it?
No.
Oh, that's
it
what
was
I
not
heard.
Pixar.
Okay.
But
Pixar.
If it was Pixar, there'd be an issue.
Okay.
But yeah, they used to do that kind of stuff, and it really kept Nintendo in the public eye, and that's what we need now.
Yeah, I mean, even outside of that, I just want it. Just give it to me. Like, if Nintendo's trying to, sell me on something, like, we're telling you now. Like, I imagine other people would hear this and say, like, yeah, like, that's a good idea.
And it doesn't have to be, like, top-tier premium quality. If we get something like the Sonic Boom cartoon, I'd be all in for that.
Love Sonic Boom. Like,
it's so fun.
Some of the best writing, like, in kids animation,
Sonic Boom is such a sad story. The game is awful, and the TV show is fantastic.
The TV show is fantastic because the game is awful.
Yeah, I was home a few weeks ago, and I was just taking care of my niece. We were just hanging out, and I was like, okay, just gonna turn on something. And the first thing that was on, like, Hulu was like, oh, Sonic Boom. I've heard this is good. I watched an episode. It's so well written. Like, it's incredible. Like, that show shouldn't be as good as it is.
I think part of the reason why is that, like, they know they're writing for Sonic Boom, so they have to be self-aware about themselves.
Yeah.
I think it's like the second episode where Eggman like stages this whole thing where he's like, oh yeah, like my lair on top of this mountain, it got blown up. And I need somewhere to stay. And Sonic is kind of like, they're kind of like doubting him, and eventually they're like, okay, like we're good, we're the good guys. We can't treat him the way he would treat us. And then all of a sudden, like, not all of a sudden, but eventually he reveals this elaborate like plot to wear them out, like annoy the heck out of them, and to wear them down, and then to take them over. And then, like, at the end of the episode, he blows up his lair. Like, that wasn't blown up before. And then he tries the same thing again, except this time genuinely.
It was actually blown up.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, I need a place to stay. And they were just like, nope. And they, like, put him back on the mountain and just left him. And I'm like, that's a lesson, guys. Not everybody is going to be so nice to you. They're going to act like they're like, oh, I want this from you. And then they're going to
don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
Right?
So I thought it was an appropriate lesson on Sonic Boom.
You could just pull, one-off type cartoons with Splatoon. Please do it, Nintendo. Listen to it.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I'd be okay with a CG animated Splatoon thing, but I'd also be okay with just an animated.
Honestly, yeah, go either route. I think either would work perfectly.
Yeah.
I mean, Splatoon is already like a 3D thing.
Okay, that being said, so outside of Splatoon, outside of series that have already existed, what else from Nintendo would you love to see in a TV show format?
Arms.
Animated by Studio Trigger.
Oh my god,
Dude,
the fight scenes
no
would be so sick.
What has Trigger done?
Kill la Kill. What else? I just know them.
Just imagine Springman in that art direction.
Yeah. I know them for a few other, but I'm not gonna like.
I mean, Kill la Kill's a big one. Yeah. So.
Well, then how about you, Santi? What would you like to see?
I was genuinely thinking, like, okay, either like a 3D animated Splatoon or like a 2D animated Splatoon, but also Trigger. Just mostly because of like the whole ink dynamic. Like, Trigger's really good at their colors, and it'd be so vibrant.
I feel like anime, like a Japanese animated Splatoon, would really bring that to life. I can imagine, even just like thinking about like, Broly. And just how they were able to make that come to life. Taking that same Splatoon. Could you imagine like a turf war in an episode and how cool that could look, Yeah. It's kind of like this competitive edge. They could even do like, it could be like a shonen kind of thing where it's like they have a team where they're like working towards being like the very best.
We're going to be the top of the turf war.
And then one of them learns a new technique. It's the Booyah Bomb.
Yeah. I would love to see, maybe... Was it Frederator who did Castlevania? I know they were associated with it.
I think so.
But I'd like to see something like that, except for Metroid.
Oh.
Like something really dark and gritty, but You know, and it wouldn't have to be terribly long, maybe like 2 or 3 seasons.
Imagine like if that entire first season, Samus only talks like 4 or 5 times because she's alone.
Yeah, like that's why I've been wanting, even just out of a Metroid movie or something. I really like the idea that it gets really deeply artistic and there's almost no dialogue because she is alone for the most part, and I really want them to play into that isolation a lot more.
I mean, they could even like save the reveal that it's Samus as a woman till the end to kind of reference the first game, and then have her talk right then, and then cut to credits for the first season.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool.
And so, not to get you guys too excited, but one more idea before we move on. Kid Icarus.
Animated by David Studios, aka JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh, JoJo's so good. Don't get me started on JoJo.
I would take that instantly. Because the thing is, like, obviously, okay, David Studios is David Studios, and, Araki being the writer of JoJo is, they're separate. But, like, it's not, I don't know. I think of JoJo and I think of Kid Icarus, and they have so much in common. There's, like, the weird, wacky humor, crazy style, The fight scenes are just amazing, that kind of highly style. I just like style. I really love style.
And they've already like proven that in 3 different ways with Kid Icarus using those animated shorts that they made years ago when the game came out.
Yeah.
So it's like there's already a precedent for this one.
Also, some of those Smash Bros. Like animations, like the 2D ones, when like you got Link like going at it, like those are so.
Pit.
Oh my gosh, yes, that was fantastic. And one of the 3 Kid Icarus shorts was just Palutena trying to cook dinner for Pit, and like she turns all of the vegetables into monsters and they start attacking the town. Yeah, it's just silly stuff like that, just these random happenings that would happen in the World of Light,
Yeah.
Or World of Light.
Whoa.
Wrong game.
Whoa.
So yeah,
I'll take a World of Light anime.
so definitely some cool prospects for Nintendo. Hopefully they do that with Splatoon and some of their other properties while we wait for their games to come out. But what else do we have on the docket today?
So I think these next 2 stories will kind of go hand in hand. Really quick to mention, Nintendo Switch was the best-selling console in the first half of 2019. Not surprising. It's successful. It's got a lot of good hardware. It's just a compelling piece of hardware. And it also noted that, like, Xbox and PS4, they're kind of getting to the end of their life. They're kind of looking to move on to the next generation. Though I do think these next generations are going to look a little bit different, but, people are buying these less, and they're, doing other things. Xbox never has been that much momentum, though it has stayed pretty steady, and it seems like Xbox is doing pretty good. But there has been inklings of the PS5 on the horizon. So this has kind of made a space for people to be like, okay, well, we're not just looking for power, we're looking for a different kind of experience, we're looking for that Nintendo quality. And so it seems like the Nintendo Switch is doing pretty well, and I imagine that'll take up here in a few months once the Nintendo Switch Lite comes out, which is $100 cheaper. It's a lot more portable.
Pokemon's coming out.
That's definitely one of the reasons they were pushing this Nintendo Switch Lite out here. Though there is, I have some concerns, because I remember getting my Switch, launch day, midnight, picking it up, and also getting the wonderful Breath of the Wild with it. And, after a few weeks, some weird things started happening with the Joy-Con analog sticks. Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Well, mine was right first, actually.
Oh, wow.
And mine is currently both.
That's bad.
I have issues with both. So this notorious drifting issue that initially I was like, oh, I got screwed. Well, sounds like a lot of people, are having the same issue. And so there has been a class action lawsuit filed against Nintendo for these issues with the Joy-Cons. So I think there's 2 things with that. As much as I love Nintendo, I think this is a good thing.
Yeah,
it's going to pressure them into a corner where it's like, okay, well, we have to deal with this. So whether, they win the lawsuit or lose the lawsuit, like, it's shining a light on an issue that a lot of people are having. And so hopefully at some point it will be easy and inexpensive, if not free, to either get your Joy-Cons replaced with Joy-Cons that do not have that issue, and they can hopefully find out why they were having these issues and fix it, or they can, repair it and send it back to us, because I would love to never have to worry about whether like I'm going to have these issues and then maybe I'm playing handheld with Binding of Isaac, and all of a sudden like my Joy-Con moves left and I take damage and I lose a run because of it, and that can be really frustrating.
I think there's a couple ways they can go about resolving this. One of them, you said, they could offer free repairs for everyone who bought a Nintendo Switch till X date,
right.
Which theoretically would be like now, because it's still a problem even in new Joy-Cons. Or they can offer everyone who owns a Nintendo Switch a complimentary pair of Joy-Cons, which would be very expensive, but it's something they got to deal with.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully I just wonder if like they have solved this issue, or if this is something that has persisted as they've continued to reveal different colored Joy-Cons. Like they just revealed like 2 sets, of new Joy-Cons to buy. They had the purple and the orange one,
and blue and yellow.
Blue and yellow.
And the thing is, like, I want those, but the thing is, I'd like to buy them by my own accord, not because I need to out of necessity, because my sticks don't work.
Yeah.
I've been extremely careful with the yellow ones I have currently, because the red and blue ones just gave out like within 4 months, and that was not nice.
That's not okay.
Now, when you say gave out, like, you just talking about the drifting issue?
Yeah, like it just wasn't functional anymore. Like the only time I could ever play with it was with a pro controller.
Now, have you had those issues with your yellow Joy-Cons?
No.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's just like
you got lucky.
Then there's me, who has his launch set of neon colored Joy-Cons, and they still work perfectly. I'm not saying that to defend Nintendo here, obviously, but there's a lot of variables that could be going into this. It could be, how well you care for them, if you just got a bad batch, but clearly it's a problem.
Yeah.
So, I hope that they take care of this, because I, too, would like to get a new set of Joy-Cons. Particularly, I would like to get purple and yellow for obvious reasons. Though I'd have to buy 2 sets of Joy-Cons because they mismatched them for some reason. But I'm with Santi. Like, I would like to do that without the necessity, because like my Joy-Cons are okay, but my wife has gone through 2 pairs.
Yeah.
So, I would buy a new set and then give her the old ones. But what's the guarantee that this isn't going to happen again?
Right, and that's the other thing. If I'm going to spend $80 on a pair of Joy-Cons, I want to make sure that I'm getting something quality. And the fact that I feel like it's so up in the air whether, at some point you're going to start having these issues with these new Joy-Cons is frustrating. And, if it's a large enough portion of people like that have these issues and kind of have the same thought process, like how many Joy-Cons are we losing out on, I mean, alternatively, maybe Nintendo's incentivized to not fix the issue because people have to buy more Joy-Cons and they just don't question it. Which is why I think this lawsuit is so important, because it's kind of forcing Nintendo to, hopefully forces Nintendo to actually address the situation.
Right.
And they addressed the Joy-Con issues early on, like people who were having issues with the left Joy-Con without it, because it was like not reading correctly. There's like wireless interference, and they fixed those.
Right.
And they fixed them pretty quickly too. Like they didn't wait too long to address the problem. The biggest issue with this whole thing is that they haven't addressed the problem, and it's been going on for years.
Yeah, literally since the console launched.
So hopefully this gets resolved. I'd like to buy some Joy-Cons and not have to worry about it. And, the other thing with that is with the Nintendo Switch Lite coming out, people are worried that they're not Joy-Cons, but like the controls on that will feature the same issues.
Yeah, and you can't just replace that.
Yes.
That's the whole unit.
Yeah.
So, what's the guarantee? I'm a little less concerned about that specifically because it is the actual hardware, and if you do that to your actual hardware, you have irreversibly damaged the reputation of your company.
Yeah, so hopefully they, at least know what's going on, and hopefully they're in a place where they're ready to address it because it's gone on too long.
I mean, and for all we know, maybe they've already fixed it, and those are going to start shipping with the new Nintendo Switch models and obviously the Switch Lite.
Yeah.
But they got to talk about it soon. Well, I mean, they have to now, but it should have been a long time ago. So what else do we have?
We have something that's really interesting. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Shigesato Itoi.
And I imagine that
he's responsible for the Mother series.
Right. Okay. Was saying his company, and I imagine him, were saying that they would be glad if somebody else creates Mother 4.
Yeah, they personally have no interest in making the next Mother. Well, Shigesato Itoi himself, I know, is just done with the series.
He's said multiple times that he doesn't want to do games anymore. Like, he's a composer, But
yeah, he wasn't even a game developer when he started.
Right.
That's so funny.
But yeah, so they're cool with someone else doing it, and that's awesome. That's like an open invitation to say, hey, anyone who's interested in this kind of thing, maybe call Toby Fox, let him do it.
That would be sick. I would really take that because... majority of his inspiration was
Earthbound.
Yeah. I think if they ever did that, I think what they would need to do is they would need to bring Earthbound Beginnings and Earthbound
to Switch.
Mm-hmm. And then also give us Mother 3.
Is that ever... Can we talk about this for a second? Is that ever going to happen? Is this conversation over? Reggie's not even the president anymore.
No. People still ask him. I feel so bad for the guy. It's awful. Like, I've seen so many tweets directed towards him.
They have to be aware that, like, this is something that people want.
I mean, yeah.
Like, imagine, like, the amount of clout that they would get online if they were like, here's Mother 3.
They've even made fun of them in a Nintendo Direct before. Like, with the robot chicken skit. Like, there was the one where Reggie was on stage and the guy in the audience was like, where's Mother 3?
It was so good.
Yeah, so maybe they would have to decide to say, like, okay, maybe we should make another game before they were like, okay. Because I feel like if they brought Mother 3, then people would be like, oh, does this mean that we're getting a new game? So I think that might be a reason that we haven't gotten it yet, because they haven't gotten around to it.
Or it's going to be on the Game Boy Classic that they release next year. That's a prediction.
That would be cool.
That's a Star Fox 2 situation, where they put something on there that was previously unavailable, at least to our country. Right. And that's a big incentive. Oh, there's a physical piece of Game Boy hardware I can buy that's got a official localized version of Mother 3 on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you make the sale. And then we get Mother 4, developed by who?
Sakurai. No, I'm just kidding.
Rockstar?
Rockstar's Mother 4.
Mother 4 is like this massive open world experience.
Okay, well, actually,
voice acting
as a joke. Like, I would take it.
I don't know. I think after Red Dead Redemption 2, I'd be less confident.
Kind of done with.
But like something like really grandiose, really step up. Like, this is what Mother is.
But still keep that same, mother. I can't. Am I pronouncing words right? Anyway, keep that same charm.
Yeah,
I feel like they would have to either have like a really stylized like 2D approach, or just go full 3D.
I hope they do 3D because Mother 3 was originally a Nintendo 64 game, before eventually being scrapped because of the Nintendo 64 disk drive, which was an utter failure.
Okay, now imagine N64 Classic launches and they bring that version.
That would be unbelievable. Because I think that game got pretty far in development, so maybe that'd happen. But that said, I would like to see Mother 4 go 3D.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily need 3D movement and that kind of thing. If it's top-down 3D, that's cool. But I think just seeing it in 3D would be a nice forward step for the franchise.
I would like a Dragon Quest 11 situation, to be honest.
Where it's like 3D, but there's also like a 2D version? That would be cool. Yeah, because there's like full 2D sprite animations in that game, despite being a 3D open world adventure game or RPG. Yeah. It'd be a lot of work, but it would certainly be neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't really have anything else to add.
I guess the last question to pose then is, do you think Mother 4 is going to happen?
I'm gonna say no. I think it's buried. I don't have any confidence that Nintendo is really interested in bringing it back. Like, for all the other RPGs that they have, like there's other things that they, want to be making. And again, like since it's a business, they're profit driven. They have to take this into account because they can't, take every risk in the world. Even though Nintendo is better than many other companies about taking those risks.
I think the difference here though is that Nintendo themselves don't have to make the risk. Or take the risk. Look at Cadence of Hyrule.
Right.
That was developed by the indie company that did Crypt of the Necrodancer.
Right, but they still have to back it financially.
Sure. But they don't have to put, all of their stock in it. Like, imagine this. Imagine we get the next Nintendo Nindy Spotlight presentation, and the last game revealed was Mother 4 or Earthbound 3 or whatever they decide to call it. That puts Mother in its own space where it can really steal the show and actually drum up some interest.
Yeah.
I think that's how you make the sale on that.
No, I think there is a market for it. And I hope Nintendo actually is like, oh, yeah, like that's something we want to do. And maybe there is. I imagine it's been talked about like in the upper echelon of, there's
Nintendo. Certainly fan interest for it still, beyond Mother 3, you still see like the Earthbound, not to bring up fandoms, but the community is still very active. It's one of the most popular JRPGs to date, so I don't see why there's any particular reason why they wouldn't, because it would make sales.
Yeah, and I think that what they could do is they could add like some other characters to like Smash Bros. To like.
I was just about to say that. Like what you do then is that you take the protagonist of Mother 4 and then you add them to Smash Brothers.
Yeah, and then you should add some of the other protagonists into Smash as well.
You mean? Are you talking about Nintendo?
No, like the other ones.
Oh, the other characters.
Like the other party members?
Like what are their names though?
I don't know. I've never played the games.
So you're talking like Pooh and Paula and Jeff. Jeff's an assist trophy.
Yeah, we should add Pooh. Just that sounds like a fun name.
Pooh. But yeah, I think Mother 4 will happen. Just not anytime soon. That's my guess.
I feel like it's down the line. Yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, like if it takes too long, I'm not sure we'll ever get it.
Essentially,
not in our lifetimes.
Isn't this essentially just like a Sakura situation with Kirby? Like he's not making Kirby anymore. He doesn't work for Hell, but he's
true
okay with Nintendo continuing to make games.
And HAL Laboratory, I think they make all of the Kirby games, don't they, including spin-offs?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it'd be a little bit different here because Itoi's company wouldn't be responsible,
right.
But they could still give it to like. Isn't Creatures part of development for that?
I don't know.
Because Creatures works on Pokemon, or they did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they could give it to Game Freak.
That would be an interesting proposition.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly have experience with RPGs.
And Game Freak is, they got two divisions now. The 70+ people that work on Pokemon and the rest that work on new projects.
Yeah. They could even really change up the formula.
Mm-hmm.
Like instead of you taking on these characters, you could like capture characters.
Make it a
Gygus.
Make it a Pokemon parody without. I mean, Gygus looks like Mewtwo.
He does.
Oh, you caught Ness. Oh, a Ness. Sorry, there's several of them.
You caught an NES.
One just comes out of the bushes. Ah!
So what else do we got on the docket?
Okay, so real quick here, Detective Pikachu is now the all-time highest grossing video game movie, passing World of Warcraft, which World of Warcraft only grossed so much because it had like a pretty good time in China. I think it grossed over 200 million in China
That's
alone.
pretty typical for big CG movies too.
Yeah. So I think that was 433 million, and currently Detective Pikachu is 436 million, which is pretty great.
That's only going to reinforce the future of Nintendo properties becoming movies.
Yeah.
I mean, more so for Pokemon in this case, but this is just fantastic news.
Mm-hmm. I had another thought. And that is like, we talk about like this video game movie curse, and which, you could argue whether it's a thing or not, but like, a lot of people
The curse was
really,
UA Bowl.
Yeah, like we haven't found a way out of it. Like the same mistakes keep getting made over and over again. And I think partially it's, these companies give up their IPs to be made by people who don't know what they're doing with the IP or don't know what makes those IPs really special to people.
I feel like it's either that or they go like way too hard in on like, well, I know especially for the Final Fantasy movies, like those are way too niche,
It's either too niche or it's too broad.
Right, yeah.
I think Detective Pikachu really did find kind of, maybe not the perfect middle ground, but it found a really good middle ground.
It also helps that like it's Pikachu, it's Pokemon.
Yeah.
It just had that widespread appeal off the bat, and you didn't have to really, differ too much or go outside of the bounds to make it a success.
When you watch movies like the Resident Evil movies or Tomb Raider or Street Fighter, those movies never feel like an earnest effort.
Yeah.
And that's something that Detective Pikachu had in spades. You can feel like they really, really tried.
Yeah.
And honestly, most of the time, that's good enough for me. Is like they actually put in the effort to try and make a Pokemon movie. So if they do that with Mario and they do that in the future, maybe with Zelda, I think I'll be satisfied. And they'll just get better as they keep trying.
Certainly with Mario, like I have a lot of confidence in that movie just because Miyamoto's involved in it.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
He is not going to allow, certain things to get through. And I think that comes with its caveats, but at the very, very least, I think it will be a good movie.
It'll be pure Mario at the very least.
Yeah. I wonder how much talking like there will actually be. Like how much will Mario like come out? Hopefully they use Charles Martinet.
I would be devastated if they didn't.
That would
honestly
make sense, really. That's the entire brand.
He's been Mario for 30 years.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just change that on a dime.
It'd be okay if they just pulled like a Sunshine situation where everybody
Let Mario talks. Yeah.
So I don't think we're necessarily out of the woods for all video game movies. We have yet to see what's happening with the Sonic movie, but it seems like they are dedicated to making, at least marginal improvements.
Though we shouldn't ever have to get to that point.
No.
Yeah, the fact that like Sega just kind of like go for it and then didn't have any say, especially like
that's the mistake that these companies keep making, right?
Yeah.
Like Nintendo gave away complete creative freedom for Super Mario Brothers the first time, and look what happened.
Yeah. So at least having like some checks and balances to make sure that like, oh no, we want to give you a little bit of freedom, but also like that's not the kind of freedom we wanted.
It has to be a collaborative effort. You can't just like give it away and expect something good to come back. Like I work in the commercial business, and it's the same way. Like if you give me a commercial or like I get a client and they don't involve themselves in the production at all, there's no guarantee that they're going to like what they get because they didn't tell me what they wanted. So like with Nintendo and Illumination, they're working closely together because Miyamoto's part of the team. So there's going to be back and forth. There's going to be conversations. Conversations are what led to this movie happening in the first place between Miyamoto and the head of Illumination. So all of that together just makes me feel like this movie's going to be a hit.
Yeah. So just to say again, congratulations to the team and all the people involved with the Detective Pikachu, because this is a success.
Can't wait for the next one.
And I definitely spells like this is a model for people who are doing video game movies. There's obviously a wrong way to do it, but now there's more of a model of like how you should do it, and hopefully that influences more movies to be good. So we'll see how Sonic turns out. We'll see how this Monster Hunter movie turns out. We'll see how Mario turns out. Still a lot in the air, but again, like Detective Pikachu just came out, so a lot of these people are still like experimenting in that kind of old format of just hey, have at it, and then potentially really screwing it up.
Also, buy the home release if you're a fan, because it'll help in the future.
That speaks volumes.
Yeah.
So a few final stories, a few smaller things, though very, very exciting. Also, something that I'm really kind of half and half on this. So if if you guys didn't know, I'm a big fan of Super Monkey Ball. I think it's sad that we haven't gotten like a really solid Super Monkey Ball game in the last few years. Yeah. But they have announced that in October we are getting an HD remake of Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz
for Wii, or was for Wii.
Yes, it originally launched on the Wii. They took advantage of the accelerometer gyroscopic controls that were in the Wii controls to kind of, do what kind of made sense for what the game was trying to do.
I don't think the Wii remote had a gyro in it, did it? It was the Wii Motion Plus that had the gyro.
Right.
So.
But they were still able to do the whole,
the tilting
thing, which I thought was novel, but they didn't really pull it off too well. Like there was still obviously like that game is like that whole thing is based off of like the marble kind of mazes that like you'd have to shift the entire board to move the marble around and then to get to your goal. Super Monkey Ball and Super Monkey Ball 2 were fantastic, specifically Super Monkey Ball 2. Like they really developed kind of like the story. It's still stage based, really difficult game. And then they had a ton of like really, really fun like multiplayer modes. Like that was a huge party game for me and my siblings and friends.
I played that with you for the first time. That was my first experience with the mini games or the multiplayer games in Super Monkey Ball 2. And I was really impressed at just like how creative and just like pure fun they were.
Yeah, like Monkey Target was a lot of fun. Monkey Baseball is a good time. There's Monkey Billiards is just a solid billiards game.
Yep.
Just a lot of really Monkey Race was another one, but just a lot of the like a ton of party modes. And then the single player is fun. It's entertaining. And so like with Banana Blitz, that was the one that came after. And they changed up the visual style of the game a little bit, which looks good. But I actually never, I kind of lost interest in the sense of like having those motion controls. So
sure,
hopefully with the remake, the motion controls are better because
I would hope so.
Obviously all the tech that is in those Joy-Cons. Do we know if it's coming to other platforms?
PC.
Okay, so PC
it's
and
Switch and PC, which just right there tells you there will at least be analog control.
Right, which is great because analog controls, at least we know from Super Monkey Ball and Super Monkey Ball 2 that analog controls work, and that's how I experienced the game. So in terms of the actual design, I don't have anything to say about it.
I think they're adding some like bloom lighting to the game,
right?
Kind of like Wind Waker HD.
Oh, okay.
So. What I do hope this does is kind of rekindle interest in the series, and I'm hoping they didn't make a mistake by not remaking something like Super Monkey Ball 2. Right. And maybe, I don't know why they wouldn't have remade that game, because, I mean, at least for me, like, that was the most memorable experience, and then I didn't really come back to the series after that. They kind of kept going with Super Monkey Ball, like, tilt switch or something like that. It's like really kind of gimmicky stuff instead of trying just to make a really solid core experience. Which again, that's what they did with Super Monkey Ball 2. And I if they're gonna keep giving us remakes, that's the next one. Please give that. But I think for that one, they would have to just do a full like remake instead of like a remaster. Like
is that what this is? Is this a remaster?
I think it's just a remaster.
So not an actual remake.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they've really done much. But I think that also lends itself to the fact that art style kind of holds up really well. Right. Especially since it came out on an objectively underpowered console, if you want to use that.
It came out on the GameCube too.
Did it?
I was making a bad joke.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because essentially they're the same thing. So I think there's probably a lot of reasons why they went with Banana Blitz as opposed to one of the first two games, because there was that style switch, and I think they've kind of been on that Banana Blitz style since, with the last few entries. I just hope to see a solid new entry, and I imagine they're releasing this as, partially to gauge, interest in the series.
I mean, if this ends up being like a good remaster, I'll pick it up just because I don't even have any form of Monkey Ball at home. So like if I have
until I move in, because I have it on GameCube.
True. But yeah, so I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. I definitely, this is on my radar. I mean, we've had other remakes in the last few years of games kind of from that kind of same era, specifically like Katamari Damacy Reroll.
Oh, right.
Which I remember seeing gameplay online years ago and being like, oh my gosh, I want to play this, but I never had a PS2. And then also trying to find a physical copy of the game was like really, really difficult because it was such a cult hit. Yeah. But I finally got to play through it, and I played through it in a few hours, and I just had a blast. I remember like I was just at home at my parents the whole time, and I was just having a blast. Like every once in a while, like one of my siblings or one of my parents would come in, and they're like, what are you playing? So I'd love to be able to, throw my Switch in the dock at home and kind of have the same experience. Like, oh my gosh, you're playing Monkey Ball, except it's on the Switch.
Not to plug another podcast, but Katamari Damacy has like a really interesting history for how that game came to be. Look up Wizard and the Bruiser. They have a fantastic episode detailing how that came about.
Subscribe to that podcast.
Yeah, it's a really good one. So shout out to those guys.
What I can say is that I'm really enjoying the fact that, all of these earlier 3D games and franchises are starting to make a comeback. You've got Monkey Ball, you've got Katamari, even stuff like Crash and like Kingdom Hearts, God of War. Like those were all classics from that era specifically.
Right, that's true.
They're genuinely making some really great comebacks as of late, and I'm loving it.
We're like transitioning out of 90s nostalgia culture into the 2000s.
2000s.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Me too.
Yeah. Although I do worry because like it is just a lot of nostalgia, and I feel like, why can't we just get new games?
I mean, I totally agree with you, but like we're still getting fantastic new releases like Super Mario Odyssey and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Monster Hunter World. I don't think there's any shortage of new games. There might be shortage of new games in certain IPs.
Well, and then that comes back to the fact that like I don't have enough money for all these games, right? Like I look forward to I do look forward to the day where we can just have like access to all these games at any given moment, kind of like. And there's inklings of that, and obviously there are caveats with that as well. But the fact is, like, I don't have all the money in the world, and it's gonna be easier to be like, oh, I'm just gonna like stream this game as opposed to just owning it outright. Especially since like sometimes I'll finish these games and then I won't go back to them. There's no need for me to like own all these games.
Right, that's true. Like as much as I love it, and I think it was my game of the year for that year, but God of War. Like, I loved that game, but I don't ever see myself really playing it again. Yeah, so maybe rent more games? Who knows?
Yeah, so I think, over time we'll have to kind of figure out a new way to digest all this stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, for now, like, it's not like I have a shortage of games to play. It's not. So at the very least, I don't feel like I'm compelled to buy every game, But I don't have enough time for all the games in the world anyway, considering, like, I do have other interests and other things that, like, I'm getting a little bit older and trying to decide, like, oh, there's other things I need to do with my life, as well as, like, oh, look, maybe I should work on some channel stuff as well. But I digress.
I mean, that said, Fire Emblem's on the way, and that game's pretty nice.
Astral Chain, Fire Emblem, Animal Crossing. It's just a lot.
September is going to kill me.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter, Dragon Quest, I can't.
Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah, stop.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have one more thing. I don't even know. This is so weird.
Oh, you didn't know about this?
No.
So this is the new Story of Seasons game featuring Doraemon, the classic anime character. You don't know who Doraemon is?
Don't think I do.
So how much does it feature Doraemon? Is it just a character? Are you playing as the character? It looks like...
I think you play as... so Doraemon is the cat.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I do.
And then the kid is like the main character. I think you play as the kid.
Oh, that's...
Okay, this is really interesting. Okay, because one, this looks even like the what do you like the camera angle and stuff like that. It's very reminiscent of
Harvest Moon,
specifically 64.
Oh,
like
okay.
the original Harvest Moon, because we know Story of Seasons is really the original lineage of Harvest Moon.
Didn't Harvest Moon start on the Super Nintendo?
No. Harvest Moon 64, I'm pretty sure is at least
I didn't know that.
Yeah, pretty sure. And I love Harvest Moon. I think this is also interesting to say because like we've had discussions about like the validity of a Story of Seasons, Harvest Moon series in name, you know, kind of like the offshoot. Well, it's not an offshoot. It's like the Harvest Moon series, but it's not the same developer. Story of Seasons is kind of, you know, that continuation of the original, you know, designer and producer.
It did start on the Super Nintendo.
Oh, it did?
97.
Was it released in the U.S.?
Yes. You got a new game to play.
Yeah, no kidding. That's actually really cool. So I wonder how much of this is because you know we've talked about how much do these games really have a place in a world where Stardew Valley exists?
This particular entry seems to focus more on a Japanese audience because Doraemon really doesn't have a following here.
Right.
But Doraemon is a absolutely treasured character in Japan.
So, like, in terms of, like, marketing and just having an angle where people would be a little bit more interested in these games as opposed to, like, oh, I'm just, why would I play that when I could play Stardew Valley? It's like, oh, no, okay, there's a really a beloved character, you know, in our culture that, hey, I really want to experience this as. So, I mean, maybe this is how they kind of go about, you know, kind of reviving that and really bringing Story of Seasons into the spotlight when we talk about Harvest Moon.
And from what I know of Doraemon, he's like, it's kind of a celebration of life, just kind of like the simple things in life kind of character, and that just matches that whole feeling for the Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons series.
So that's really exciting. And now it's a question of like, oh, what other, you know, kind of you might call it a spin-off or, you know, a themed game. Like, could they do other themes for Story of Seasons?
They could. Who do you use? Captain Olimar.
Well, honestly, thinking about that, like, maybe they have different Story of Season, like, you know, again, spin-offs of, like, different characters.
Pokemon.
They could do a Pokemon Story of Seasons. That would be really cool.
This is gonna sound really silly, but considering how much Pokemon content has been released, but I feel like there are things that Nintendo just hasn't done enough with Pokemon. You know, I would really like to see something like that. You know, something that is very detached from the series. Like we've got Pokemon Bejeweled or whatever, but like that's not.
This is Pokemon Life Sim.
Yeah.
Pokemon Farming.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Some more that unique kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, this seems really novel to me. I think I really like like what I'm seeing, especially because again, like there's that contrast between like, why am I playing this when I could be playing Stardew Valley? Because Stardew Valley just hits it on the head, and then like they're still updating that game.
Yeah,
it's still in development.
Stardew Valley is like both a blessing and a curse because I feel like the other dev teams just. They don't know what to do. Like, how do you beat Stardew Valley? I think this is a good. They're not beating Stardew Valley, but they're doing something different.
Right.
And that's like the only approach they have left.
Well, that and like, you know, take a step back, see what Stardew Valley is doing. You know,
collaborate with Stardew Valley.
Yeah, Eric Barone. Like the reason he started creating that is because like it had been a while since Harvest Moon. Like really like had done what it really felt like. I remember playing like A Wonderful Life on the GameCube and just you know loving it so much, and there was so many aspects and it felt so magical, and you know there's all these different girls that you would romance, and it was always such a fun pure experience. So I mean the question here is, like where do they go? Like, is this something that they're just gonna keep on making because it sells enough, or are they actually gonna try to push the envelope? And it seems like Story of Seasons is really, at least doing something different to really kind of enhance the experience.
And this is one that's definitely going to appeal to a lot of children and adults who like grew up with Doraemon.
Right.
So I think that's a good tactic for that. I had something else I was going to say, but I lost it.
If you would mind me coming in, or wouldn't mind.
Oh, go for it.
The thing is, I feel like they already know what their demographic is with this.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, like there's life sims like this are not something that necessarily are the most popular genre,
Right.
And they've got like a very niche character to Japan only, It's not like they're gonna go for some grandiose type of thing. I feel like there's not a whole lot that you need to do with it,
I guess that's true, because it will always have its fans.
Right.
I think from Logan's perspective, it's just like, but it doesn't compete with Stardew Valley, and that's more or less the issue.
Different. Like, I am playing this game partially because I like that character, and I think that's a really interesting spin. And that's part of that experience, as opposed to it just being like a Harvest Moon experience.
Right. And I finally remember what I was thinking. The new Rune Factory. There's a new Rune Factory in development, which, a fantasy Harvest Moon. So that's still on the way as well. We'll see what happens with that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that was it, wasn't it? Or do we have more?
No, that was the last story we put in there. Honestly, though, like, I think that's a good note to leave off on. Like, I think other than that, like, the only thing to say would be just kind of talking about, like, I feel very nostalgic right now.
Yeah.
But, like, I think it's easy to get trapped in nostalgia, and I think in a lot of ways that can hold things back. And I'm so glad that, like, we live in an age where, like, there's tons of indie developers who are kind of putting their own spin on things, and, like, even, like, becoming more popular than the things they were inspired by.
Right.
So in addition to something like Harvest Moon to Stardew Valley,
Undertale,
City Skylines.
Oh, true.
Because you had a misstep in 2013 with the Always Online.
Mighty Number 9. No, I'm kidding.
With SimCity, and some other things that were just very, like, why weird decisions. Especially EA was just trying to make a
quick buck.
So it's good to have other people who are like, hey, we're going to do this differently, and we're going to do it better, and we're going to do it. Usually these smaller teams aren't necessarily doing it because they're trying to make a big buck, but they're trying to make something that's really going to appeal to a certain type of people, and it's also because they want to make that thing, and they want to make it really, really well, and that has a lot of advantages, especially so you can tell when a project is done out of passion and not just because it's another product that we know is highly marketable and is going to make a profit.
Right. But on that note, I think that does it for Nintendo stuff this week. I want to thank you, Santi, for being on the show. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Santi_theperson. I'm going to do content, I think, if I get myself situated here. Don't count on it. Don't even follow me. I don't really care.
Well, do follow him because he's a great mod in our Discord server. Join our Discord server. Link in the description below.
Yes, please.
But also a great mod over on YouTube and Twitch. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like the video if you liked what you saw here. In addition to that, you can follow me on Twitter at Babababs. You can follow Logan at LoggyDubs. You can follow us as a collective at Breakroom Arcade. And if you really like what we're doing here, we'd appreciate it if you could help support the show. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. You can either become a member of the YouTube channel. You can support our podcast directly over on Anchor.fm on the Nintendo Stuff podcast page. In addition to that, we also have a Patreon if you just want to support our entire operation. Link in the description for that as well below. You can support us for as little as $1 a month, and every dollar counts. Like, It helps us build tables like this, get gear like I mean, remember where we started with this show?
Mm-hmm.
We started with all of us on Discord on a very hastily made background. And here we are well over a year later, and we've got a table, we've got mics, and we're doing it.
Yeah, as an audio guy, it makes me really happy to have a setup where we're all running XLRs to one like primary like audio interface, as opposed to everybody on different computers with Yetis.
Yeah,
and then trying to do that and being able to do it in the same room and have such a kind of professional setup is like so satisfying.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for helping to support the show. We love each and every one of you. And we will be back next week with Nintendo Stuff number 49, getting ever closer to that big 5-0. It's exciting.
Yes. Little by little.
I know. And we'll do another breakdown eventually. Maybe once Logan moves in.
Oh, yeah. That's going to come up like
it's
a month or two, and all of a sudden this happens weekly.
Yeah, we will be doing the podcast from this table every single week, starting at some point in September. Some point. It's not a hard date. So yeah, all that's really exciting. Logan, I'm gonna have you go over there to close out the show.
Yep.
And I mentioned this earlier, but make sure to join the Discord server if you want to keep up the conversation with us. We love playing games with you guys, just hanging out, chatting about whatever.
We have a good time.
Yeah.
I'm like available always, so just message me and I'll play something with you.
Basically, I'm the same way. I'm not always available to play stuff, but if you message in the Discord, I'm probably there to answer you. But with all that in mind, guys, don't break your backs, break in the games. But for now, break time is over.